Welcome everyone to SEO Office Hours. My name is Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here at Good Signals. And part of what we do, along with special guests, are these office hour sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website or web search. By the way, nobody here is in the hot seat and we might not know all the answers, but multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. We've had a bunch of questions submitted already, as you can see, which we'll go through. But if there's anybody here live on the call who would like to ask any questions, please feel free to flag yourself in the chat functionality, which will be monitored. Also, there's usually a bunch of other amazing SEOs live on the call that share their ideas, experiences, and perspectives. I personally think that's one of the best things about office hours, isn't just hearing from the four of us, but everybody else contributing. So please continue to do that. Like always, with me today is Juliana Turnbull, also known as SEO Joe Blogs. Morning, happy Friday.
Hello, happy Friday. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 64th episode today. Hello, Simon. Hello, Mama, Preeti, John, Francisca, Neil, Albert, Waleed, Daniel, Favor, Kim, and Tola. Say welcome, and also very welcome to our special guests, James, and welcome back, Georgia. Thank you for joining.
Great to
Hi,
be here again.
So I'm very excited to have our two special guests with us today. As Mike said, I'm Juliana Turnbull, dialing in from Barcelona, Spain, and I run Search Events, Search London, and Search Barcelona. And I'm really happy that we have a regular show. And this, as Mike said, is a place where people can just come in and ask any sort of SEO questions that they want, and we will be able to answer them. There's no such thing as a stupid question, or there's no such thing as, oh, I'm not sure what to say. Every sort of advice is welcome. So I'm very pleased, as I said, to welcome back Georgia. Georgia came on the show earlier on last year, and Georgia is actually calling in from Lithuania because you just came to, and you just spoke at a conference, digitalmarketingcon.eu, I believe.
That's right. It was Digital Marketing Europe in Vilnius. It was my first time there. Yeah.
Oh, great. And normally Georgia is in Sydney. So Georgia is the co-founder and head of search at SwitchKey Digital, and they specialize in SXO, which stands for Search Experience Optimization. And this bridges that gap between SEO, user experience, and conversion rate optimization. Georgia is also an international speaker, obviously spoken at Lithuania and a few other conferences too. And she organizes women into SEO and digital marketing in Sydney. And outside of that, she's a comedian. You wrote, Georgia, and directed a comedy show featuring 25 cast members, and you performed at the Seymour Centre in Sydney.
That was a while back, but yes, I was into the creative writing side as well and directing.
That's very impressive. Welcome to the show. Welcome back. Thank you for coming back to our show today. And hello, James. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, and you were just speaking at Digital Marketing Con as well, but you and
I
Georgia
was
didn't
indeed.
know each other.
No, yeah, it was a shorter trip for me. I was there 2 days. Yeah, just over 2 days, flying trip, but yeah, really good event. And yeah, like Georgia, first time in Lithuania. Never been before, but yeah, very, very nice trip.
Yeah, and you've spoken at many events. I think I saw you spoke at Search Y in Paris. You spoke in SMX, Brighton SEO,
Yeah,
PubCon.
and I think I last saw you at International Search Summit in Barcelona.
Yes, that's one of my favorite
Yeah.
conferences. Yes, and
Yeah,
also
lots of international trips.
there's a lot. And you also spoken at Digital PR Summit. So when is the next
Yes.
one of
We
that
are
taking
hosting
place?
that again in Manchester, the UK's largest digital PR conference. We're hosting that again in Manchester on the 8th of May.
And how many people are you expecting to attend?
We are expecting that to be 600 this year. We had 400, we sold out 400 last year. We've gone for a bigger venue this year. And yeah, we're on track for that to be full at 600.
Wow, very impressive. So I'll get that link, or if you have
Thank
the link
you.
to hand, we
Yeah,
can.
we started that online in COVID, and obviously the digital PR space was booming, and we started it online. And last year we decided to take it in person. A couple of things on that really. Brighton stopped doing their online PR show as part of the Brighton SEO. And so we thought there was an opportunity to take a dedicated full day digital PR event. And yeah, looking forward to it, and should be a very good event.
Oh, great. I've just shared the link there. Looking forward
Thank
to
you.
that. So that's Thursday, May 8th in Manchester. So please have a look and see if you would like to attend. It looks like you've got a great lineup. You've got Mark Roth, you've got Katie Powell, you have Kirsty Halls as well.
Yeah.
Looks very good. And you've got tickets are 99 plus VAT, so very economical.
Or bundles of 5 for teams are, say, 50% on bundles of 5. So as cheap as £50 for a full day with catering. Thanks to our sponsors.
Yeah, that's great. Wow. Look forward to seeing more about that. We've got a very busy SEO office hours today, and thank you for everyone that's joined us. I've seen we've got Monsi just came in, Tosin, Gatsi, Naveen, Caroles, Ikra. Thank you for coming to the show. And if you do have any questions, please just write them in the chat. And those that are watching the recording, as you are enjoying the show so much, please do click a like on the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also for those that are joining us live, feel free to do so as well. I mentioned to Mike today that actually Good Signals now has 1,000 followers on LinkedIn. Woo-hoo! And it didn't when we started the show.
Yeah,
So I think that's
thanks.
really good. I think it's good. It was like less than 100.
Yeah, this time last year, I think we had about 70. Yeah, that's pretty good. Great. Okay, should we get cracking? James, unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to make the conference. I've just realized my stag do is a couple of days before. So I think the idea.
Good excuse, good excuse.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously there is a core update rolling out at the moment, and we have had a few questions on that. But I think it makes sense because we always give the advice to wait and see what happens over those few weeks. I think it makes sense to hold off on those questions until it's finished rolling out. However, I do have one that I think is that we can answer and is relevant. So during a core update, I know we're all watching our own traffic and our own rankings like hawks, but is there anything else we should be keeping an eye on? So this is more in just general core updates rolling out. You're watching your rankings. Should you be keeping an eye on anything else? Georgia, are you okay to start?
Yeah, for sure. Apart from your own sites, and especially if you're managing or looking after a lot of sites, then definitely recommend looking at it from a niche perspective, look at different industries, look at different, whether it's the .co.uk, .coms, .com.au, and see if there's any differences. I think that'd be really interesting. And then just take it day by day and see how it goes, I think.
Good, great advice. James, what about you? Anything on top of the...
Yeah, coming at it from a very different angle, and not necessarily in terms of rankings, but one of the things I pay close attention to during the core update is the query count of pages that are potentially being affected. So one of the big observations I've seen over the past few years of core updates is where actually a lot of the losses, and we've done a lot of work with analyzing brands who have seen a decline or a gain in core updates. And I think one of the trends that we've seen a lot of in those who are the losers is that the terms they're losing for were never really terms they either should have ranked for or were really driving much. So one of the things that I would always pay attention to there is looking at, are you losing queries? Are you losing query count, sort of the number of queries that a page is showing for on individual pages, high priority pages? That can often be a signal as to what's going on. If you are, not even are you losing, is there a change? Are you losing? Are you gaining? If you are losing, are they terms that you ever should have really ranked for, or were they just very generic terms? And I guess it comes back to that. You can lose traffic without losing business impact. And I think sometimes you need to distinguish, if you do see a negative impact from this, is it going to affect the bottom line, or was it just vanity traffic? And I think one of the things that we've seen time and time again through the core updates is travel. Travel is a great example. Go back 2 or 3 years, and some of it was the helpful content update. A lot of it is the ongoing core updates. Was you used to search a destination, and it would be a random blog post that ranked in position 3 for things to do in Barcelona. And I think, as an example, over time, those sort of pages have lost those top high volume but very generic queries. So keeping an eye on query count, I think, is really important to do as a bit of an indication as to what's going on. It can give you a bit of an insight into what Google is rewarding, what Google is not rewarding anymore, but also looking at it through third-party tools, SEMrush, Ahrefs, and how that's changing for competitors and the pages that are gaining or dropping in that. to give just a bit more indication as to what's actually going on in the update.
And so, James, just for anybody that doesn't know
Yes.
query counts versus traffic and rankings,
Yeah.
how are you looking at query counts?
So I'm looking at that simply as the number of different queries that a URL or a site is showing up for on the SERPs. And yeah, you can compare that like for like with competitor sites and competitor pages, with SEMrush, with Ahrefs. And again, it's about looking at trends. It's about using it as a way to analyze the trends and see whether you are ranking for fewer or more queries, and then really digging down into what they are.
Brilliant. Joe, what about you? Any thoughts on what they, outside of traffic and rankings, anything else you should be looking at?
I think James and Georgia summed it up quite well. I wouldn't look at anything else. What I would do is just think about, or maybe analyze what you have done in the past and what may be against Google guidelines, so that you can maybe see, okay, if there's any changes that you find, is it because of that or not? But no, I think Georgia and James summed it up very well. Thank you.
The only things I would add is to just keep an eye on some of the news websites, and some of the tools produce some really good content. I know Simon's mentioned that as well. Systrix usually do some sort of report across different sectors and so on, just to give you a bit of an indication on who's doing well and not so well. I hate the term winners and losers, but who's done well this time. And usually people are sharing stuff about their experiences or online in places like X and Blue Sky Social and so on. The thing that I tend to do, and this is just because I'm a bit of an SEO nerd, is we track a ton of competitive terms just across different markets, whether we work in them or not. And on a regular basis, I just like to review those same results. I think it's about 500, but there are certain ones that are across very different sectors, and just like to see what's going on and what types of websites are being rewarded. And they usually give me some good ideas in terms of inspiration for like layouts or types of content, and how other industries are tackling quite competitive queries. And so I actually did that this week, and I'll do it again next week. But that's not just because of the core update, that's just in general. I like to do that, but I tend to look at across, when core updates and things like that are happening, across sectors rather than go sector by sector, which is what I tend to do when we're outside of major algorithm shifts. Joe, do we have anything in the chat?
We just have some people agreeing. Monty said sometimes taking a look at the overall sector can help with understanding what's happened. It's part of the analytical job that we do. Imam was mentioning to pay attention to website speed, mobile friendliness, and crawlability. Corrales, I like this one. For me, not much I can do while the core update is running. Anything wrong would be like adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah, definitely don't obsess over it. Okay, next question is, and I guess this is not just for the four of us, but for everyone, like all questions, but particularly this one. What problems or issues are you facing right now as an SEO? For example, is it the rise of AI? Is it getting buy-in? Or is it how to show ROI of SEO, or anything else? James, are you happy to kick off on this one?
Yeah, of course I am. So I think there's a couple of big points here, I think. And I think certainly being agency side, one of the big, I think, question points and challenges from a client perspective is this almost not obsession, but this overnight shift to AI. And I think in terms of how visible are we in AI, what do we do now for it? And it's a difficult one, because I think we, as SEOs, as marketers, we are very much in a place, I think, where we're in this tech bubble. And I think if we step outside of that for a moment and step into the everyday world, we're working on a big travel project at the moment, and their question at the moment is, how visible are we in ChatGPT? And it opens up these conversations. And this travel brand is weighted towards certainly the older market, is luxury travel. And I think one of the big challenges there is making sure that AI as a whole, from an AI search perspective, isn't being just obsessed over a shiny new object syndrome. And that is not me discounting its future. That is not me discounting its visibility. And I'm largely not talking about AI overviews here. I'm more talking ranking and showing in ChatGPT searches and Perplexity searches and Claude. And I just don't buy, and we've started doing some sort of consumer research here. I just don't buy that a lot of sectors, they don't even know what it is. You look at luxury travel, where we know the market is sort of 50, 55 plus. Outside the tech bubble, you go and start to have these conversations with customers. And I think a lot of this comes back to knowing your audience and how they search. They are not using ChatGPT to find a luxury travel provider where the average spend is something like £15,000 on bespoke tours. They are not using ChatGPT for that. And we've had a few conversations with their customers, and I think it's something that should always be done, in-depth consumer research. And I think most of the responses we got were things like, what's ChatGPT? So I think making sure that the audience is the market, the consumers are right for this, and not just jumping in. It's really easy as SEOs, as marketers. Everywhere we turn on social, everybody is about AI, everyone is about LLMs. Are the audience? And I think sometimes they're not. And it's really easy to sit in this bubble and assume they are. The general population hasn't yet. So many of them don't even know what it is, let alone using it or even using it to search. So I think there's an education piece there that we're finding ourselves in conversations here where we're coming back to the basics. It's understanding your audience. Understanding your audience and where they hang out online and where they search. You look at some markets and that, yes, they are moving from Google to TikTok. Yes, they are moving from platforms, but not everybody is moving and not everybody's audiences are moving to ChatGPT to search. But I think it's a challenge that we're all facing right now, is that it's so easy to become distracted and listen to the noise that everyone is moving to search on the AI tools right now.
Couldn't agree with you more, especially on the getting distracted. It's so easy
Yeah,
to
it
distract
is.
with these new, particularly like new tools. Somebody will say, have you tried this out yet? Or have you tried that out? And then you like spend a whole
Yeah, but you can't be naive and bury your head in the sand and say it isn't happening.
yeah.
It is. People are moving to other platforms. But what I think, again, it comes back to having a bespoke strategy and where one brand's audiences are hanging out and searching, somebody else's aren't even aware that place exists.
Great. Georgia, what about you? What challenges or problems are you facing right now? If you're happy to share those.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I'm definitely seeing that as well, with clients being like, is it worth investing into SEO? Is SEO dead? Should I be just optimizing for ChatGPT instead? So I definitely see that too. And I think a real challenge and opportunity now is that we see lots of clients coming and they're not just thinking about SEO, they're wanting to invest across multiple platforms and channels. Like it could be Google search, it could be YouTube, it could be ChatGPT, it could be TikTok. So I think the opportunity now is how we can actually be more holistic with the SEO and advise across multiple platforms, multiple models like text, image, video, even voice, and down the line. Another challenge, I guess, would be potentially seeing, more zero-click searches, less traffic, but how we can flip that is actually then focusing more, like James was saying as well, like on the business impact, on the conversions, and focusing a lot more, I think, on the business outcomes, the target audience, and like the engagement. So things are definitely changing, but I think like we can definitely have to step up to this situation and like a lot more to explore now, but also needing to be more laser focused on the target audience specific to the brand, the personas, and the outcomes that we're measuring.
Amazing. Joe, what about you? What challenges are you facing right now?
I think it is about jumping on this bandwagon for AI and where to start. So I was at SMX Munich this week and I did see a great presentation by Rand. So thank you, Jordan, for showing this. It's very interesting what he actually said about, he actually mentioned in the chat, actually, Jordan, because there's a lot of information in it, that what Rand was saying was that in 2024, Google search was 373 times larger than ChatGPT. So the point was that everyone's talking about different things like ChatGPT or Gemini or different sort of AI in some sort of format. But actually though, in part, they're, in the grand scheme of things, it makes up a small amount. So my challenge is really trying to, I suppose, get up to speed with what's happening, but this happens anyway in SEO. And my other thing is around finding platforms where they're incorporating these changes. No, because you might always have someone in your company ask, oh, what about this AI overview? Do we know where we're appearing? And I'm just saying this for UK search results or US. And then the other thing is really about, I suppose, like the third one is like the updates. So obviously we had the update. Okay, what's going to be the change there? How can we manage that if there's any sort of negative impact from it? So for me, it seems like with the AI is taking something of more of a front of mind and front seat, because I know I need to get up to speed with it. But at the same time, as James said, and for what Jordan shared in the chat, like in the number of searches, it doesn't dominate, but yet it seems to dominate the chat around it. So I think that's really where it becomes a bit more tricky in March, April 2025.
Hey, I guess from my perspective, not so I don't say the same things that you guys have said. I think one of the things I've always found working in SEO is that sometimes people don't take your recommendation seriously until it's too late. And I think that's always been something, but it's even more so now. And I think because, say, for instance, you have a client and they're doing stuff that you don't want them to do, you don't think that's quite right. I wouldn't do that if it was my business. And that's how I usually present it, is if it was my business, I wouldn't do X. But because it works, they do it. And then when it doesn't work, it's like, ah. And I'm not the type of person that will go, I told you. But I think that it's one of those that, because we can't control the outputs, we can only control the inputs. Actually, you can say, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. And they get rewarded for so long. And our industry, from that perspective, I think that's always going to be a challenge. And it works the other way as well. You can tell people to, despite what competitors are doing, if you focus on the good stuff, at some point you'll benefit. So if you focus on earning links instead of buying them, if you focus on creating the best possible answer on the internet, all of that kind of stuff, and they don't get rewarded, it's like, when you could, and as an SEO, you look at it, okay, why do I think these alternatives are doing so well? And it's quite obvious why. I think that's the frustration. I guess that's why when we have things like these core updates, you hope every time that it's going to benefit those that are trying to be the best and all that. But that it's not always the case. So I think that's always a slight frustration. And I think another one is just similar point to what everyone was saying about AI. But for instance, all the editorial stuff we've been doing for the last however long on people's websites, and now you have things like AI overviews and stuff that's essentially learning from that and knocking what we've been doing down. I think that's just a challenge. And obviously you can continue to create the best answer. And actually, I was at SEO FOMO party in London going back a couple of months ago. And this was something that Mark Williams Cook was talking about, where he was saying that he had this amazing website that was getting sort of 50,000 visitors each month. And then all of a sudden AI overviews come along and take that away. And it's basically creating a better content because it's learning from the best content and it's able to turn something around very quickly. So yeah, I guess they're just two other challenges. What about in the chat, Joe? Do we have any others?
Yes, we do actually. So on this question, we have nothing, what's it say? Nothing set in stone regarding visibility on Perplexity. Jordan, he was agreeing with you, James. Once he's saying not everyone knows about ChatGPT. We also have, yeah, as I said, Jordan shared the Spark Toro study, which was very interesting. I do recommend anyone uses that. It was actually taken, Rand got that from Datos. It was Datos, a SEMrush company, and it's a very interesting piece of research. And yeah, he shared it this week in Munich, and he also shared it, I believe, at Friends of Search last week. So Simon says that firms are running scared that the competition will steal a march on them with AI. So hence why there's a panic. We've also got, Monty saying, some firms are insecure about their processes. Like every time there's something new, maybe like AI or something that they can't understand or implement, it can be difficult for them to get their heads around. So I think, yeah, we've got quite a lot of comments on this. I think it seems to be AI. People are jumping on this bandwagon, yet maybe don't either, one, have the time to allocate to research it, or two, think that it's actually taking over massive amounts of space and everyone's using it, when in fact they're not yet. But I would recommend, including myself, of course, that everyone is aware of it and can actually use it should they wish. Not necessarily that you need to, but I think it's important that we can take the time to actually think about it, see how it could be useful, and then use it where relevant. Oh, we've just got another comment. Yeah. Over to you, Mike.
Great. And I was just also going to mention that I was listening the other day to Simon, who's on the call, who he was on the Search in 2025 podcast and was basically just saying, don't overcomplicate things and get the basics right. And I think we can really, like James was saying, get distracted and caught up in all these kind of other things going on, but just getting those basics right and fundamentals are so important.
Then
Fine.
I will say just
I'll
at
go
this
for it,
time,
Dave.
anyone that's enjoying the show, click a like on the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And those that are watching us from home, you can join us from 9:30 a.m. From next week, it will be, I believe, British summertime. So next Friday, 9:30 a.m. UK time. And then April the 4th, it will be 9:30 a.m. British summertime. So for some countries that don't have summertime, we will be 1 hour ahead or less. So just check your invites you get from Mike on April 2nd, 3rd, because the timing will be off by 1 hour, depending on where you are.
Okay, great. Next question. So they've started this by saying outside of reviews. So outside of reviews, in an EEAT world, how do you provide a balanced view on your sales page? Is that possible? Georgia, are you okay to kick off on this one?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I definitely think that there's a couple of areas there in terms of how can we build that trustworthiness, credibility. So you could look at UGC content, you could look at reviews, other trust signals like awards, badges, as well as actual pictures of people from your company, the brand, unique imagery, and quality videos. I think those are all great ways to really showcase the engagement and uniqueness of these sales landing pages. It can make a huge difference, even just what's above the fold on your in your hero section. You want to really build that credibility from the beginning on a sales landing page, like the instant someone lands on there and has that first impression. I'd say yes, we run some tests, like even just changing like a stock image or a particular like illustration to a real photo of the brand of the product can make like a huge difference to conversions.
Amazing. James, what about you?
Yeah.
How do you provide a balanced view on a sales page in an EEAT world?
Okay, so firstly, I'm going to drop in how I've been talking about EAT for the past couple of years, and that's that as SEOs, I think two things I think have happened in the last however many years around EAT. Firstly, too many of us ignored it for far too long and almost took the viewpoint of, yeah, Google's just saying it. They don't actually understand how to measure or emulate any of that. And yes, they do. And I think it came out in the DOJ trial last year that the quality raters are what they're feeding back is it's being taken to train Google's machine learning systems. And I think that's one thing that certainly stood out to me in the DOJ trial and the stuff that came out of that. And I think it's not a direct ranking factor. And I think that's where a lot of people, not just SEOs, but also wider marketers, stakeholders in the business, they're used to things being so black and white. And I think we talk about EEAT and doing things in an EEAT world. And it is really hard to show. If I think of it, we go and make recommendations to a client and say, we want you to do this and this. That might be using experts in media coverage as opposed to using your marketing executive. It might be working in quotes from these experts. It might be building out author pages. That's not because building out an author page is suddenly going to help you rank better. It's for the simple perspective that These are all things that help people to trust a site, certainly if you're in things like YMYL niches. So how do you talk about it? To me, EAT really, if we talk about it as your online reputation, stakeholders find it far easier to understand. You can't change reputation overnight. You can't give a reputation score. So why are we not talking about it like that? So if we then get into this thing about how do you provide a balanced view on a sales page, I also have this belief that EAT is as much about what other, it's not even a belief, it's in the quality rating guidelines, that EAT is as much about, if not more, what other people say about you than you do yourself. So yes, we've got reviews, that was in the question, but the other one is make sure there is a buzz about the business, include where you've been talked about in the press. So showcasing, and I think in the context of the question, it was meant that reviews are, I think they're meaning in terms of customer reviews, but what are the press saying? What are other people saying? What's that social buzz? And I think, Simon, you just put in the chat there, brand building takes years, EAT is basically brand. Yes, it is. Reputation, brand. And I think that's where too many SEOs have tried to take a shortcut for EAT to go, okay, EAT is about having author, but no, it's not. It's about building a brand, building a reputation. That doesn't mean you have to be the next Amazon or Airbnb. And I think one of the things that I say all the time is that you can be a known brand in your space without being anywhere near the level of a household name brand. And I think when we start talking about brand, everyone assumes you mean they have to go and invest heavily in out of home, be a glow. No, you don't. Be known in your space.
Amazing. Joe, do you have anything to add?
That's a great answer. I would say brand. I'm seeing a lot more people to be talking about actually brand and building up your brand. And that's actually one thing that we covered at Search Barcelona from Robert Brand. He was from Email Tool Tester and he talked about how to be able to drive more traffic in 2025 is about building up your brand. And people will be buying from companies that they trust, that they like. And so it's even more important, I would say, now with some other changes in the SERPs, for example, the AI overviews, that you do build that up. In terms of when they say about the sales page, this one I would say, I really like the fact that on some pages they'll say like users also bought and put on the bottom. So it's like you can pair things up. For example, if you're doing a gift. And I think it's good to have a link to the reviews. I know they said outside of reviews, but it's still important, I think, to at least have it on the sales page so you can see overall. And we said sales page, but we didn't say if this is the product page or if this is the category page. I think for category pages, you do need to go into a little bit more, I would say, have a bit more information around the actual category, like maybe women's cosmetics or paraben-free cosmetics. What is that? How can we use that? Or the same if we're looking at household products, chemical-free, but safe products for cleaning, and we have a category on that, and then you go into your product pages. So I think actually the category pages is where you can actually have more of a balanced view than the actual product page itself.
Great. So something we do more from a CRO perspective actually is that we survey customers and we find out, not our customers, but our clients' customers. So if they've just bought, we do this in, say, all at once rather than ongoing, where we might interview or survey, say, 250 at a time. And we ask them questions just around what they like about us or the product, what they don't like, why they picked this particular product over another. And actually, over the last few years, we've started using some of those insights on things like sales pages and so on. So, for example, I've worked with some travel clients, and on a location page, obviously not every location is the best location ever. They suit different groups or different people or whatever. And so actually, by showing what 250 people who recently went there thought, on top of things like reviews and so on, I think that's quite a good way of showing a balanced view. And what I often find with products is, for instance, you can put negative things without it being negative. So it might be, for example, that they actually prefer a different type of material and they thought it was going to be that. The client might also offer products that have that material. So I find that there are ways of, if you want to have like positives and negatives of something, I think it's something that it might be Amazon or Trustpilot or something like that. One of that where they actually go through the reviews and summarize them with AI, where you've got what people liked and what people didn't like. And I think stuff like that is quite useful. Did anybody want to say anything else on this before we jump on to the next question?
There's some comments in the chat.
Go for it. Yes, please.
Yeah, so someone said that building brand takes years. EEAT is basically brand. Wally's talking about showcase expert endorsements, like display the trust badges. That's a good one. And security sales. Once he said trust should be present in your overall strategy. And I'm just looking at a couple more here. With reviews, Simon, he'd like to see what TV programs the reviewer watches to see if they're rubbish or not. Simon. Yeah, so just basically about building your brand takes a long time.
Actually, years ago, I remember coming across oyster.com. I don't know if they still exist or not, but they're like booking.com, but in the States. And Ram Fishkin used to talk about this example all the time. And they used to set, so they, a bit like booking.com, where you can book hotels and rooms and so on. They would basically send photographers to go and replicate the photos from the website or from the brochure. And some of them were great, but some of them really weren't. And I really like that example of showing that honesty. And they were selling all those hotels, but ultimately they have more than one hotel on the site. So we've sent the same photographers with the same kind of brief or guidelines to go and do this. And one photo sticks in my head where in the brochure, you've got this couple at this like monument by the pool getting married. And it's the most lovely photo. And then the reality is the photographer took the same photo, but took a few steps back, and you just had loads of people walking around in swimming costumes and stuff, just staring at you, which is not quite the same. So I guess from a balanced or honest perspective, that kind of sticks in my head. Okay, let's jump to the next question, which I had. It makes sense to tackle some of the other questions that we get that aren't necessarily time bound. I guess this one is time bound for someone who's asked the question, but in this moment in time, would you recommend a career in SEO? Georgia, you're smiling. Would you?
Look, I would, but I'd say be prepared for things to be quickly changing. And I think like the skill set as SEO, just as SEO is really moving more towards brand, like we were talking about, really requires the skills of more of a holistic marketer. I'd say like we still need the technical, we need the relationship building, we need the user experience and engagement side, and being able to work across like with different teams and not be in silos, work with development, work with marketing, work with design. No, I still think it's like someone that loves that challenge and what they've originally loved about SEO and how there's always so many parts to it. I definitely recommend, but I guess if someone still had more of that mindset that SEO it's not going to be like the traditional just keywords, just link building, just technical. And if that's the case, then probably not the best time to start on that.
So a mixed bag there. James, would you recommend a career in SEO?
100%. SEO is brilliant. It's no questions asked, no questions asked. But I think back to when I first got into SEO and I started out working in SEO like 16 years ago now. And I think it was always certainly introduced to me when I started out as a junior at an agency as this is a spammy manipulative tactic. We are cheating our way to the top of Google. And I think that's those of us who were in SEO pre-Penguin, I think it was almost you were taught that and told that, but to a client, it was always, oh no, this is what you're meant to do. This is what's good. How was buying spammy links on completely random websites from sellers in the Far East ever the right thing to do? I don't know. But I think look, over the past 10 years, SEO I believe we're now at a point where SEO has a seat at the CMO's table, and it didn't used to. And I think on that, yes, SEO is great. SEO is finally being taken more seriously. Maybe it doesn't get the budgets that it deserves compared to, say, paid. But I think the next few years is going to be really exciting. But I think it needs a different skill set. I honestly believe 15 years ago, anyone could learn SEO in a couple of weeks. You could rank a site with next to no experience. I think the difference now is, as Georgia said, you need to be a more holistic marketer. You need to understand where it fits in. But I think my biggest recommendation to anyone is on that is what is needed more than ever is strategy. SEO for too long spent so much time being tactical as opposed to strategic. And I think we also have to consider what can and will AI take away from junior roles, introductory roles. I think we're going to be many years, if we ever see AI taking away what people can think in their heads, bringing in that experience, that holistic understanding. So a career in SEO, 100%, I think what's going to be in more demand than ever over the next few years is people who properly get strategy and how SEO fits into the not just the wider marketing mix, but can have a proven impact on real business metrics.
Amazing. Joe, would you recommend a career in SEO at the moment?
I would recommend it, but I would recommend that you have, like, I would say, more of a wider marketing experience. So you can actually learn about paid search, you can do email marketing, you can maybe learn about brand, and then you could focus into an area, for example, SEO. I do like what James said about strategy. I do think overall people don't know the difference between a strategy and a plan. So I did strategic management at uni, and we also had other elements of marketing, but we only did one course about strategy. And I do think we'd need to do more about that. And then as a person that is just starting into SEO, they can have an overview of the strategy, maybe work with someone. So I would actually suggest this time, March, for people in the UK, US, you haven't finished school yet. So I'd recommend, could you maybe set up a placement over the summer to work with someone that is in SEO before you decide to actually go into it? And Simon was actually recommending you to start in a different element of marketing, or if you can start in web dev so that you get a good understanding of tech SEO and then move into it. And over to you, Mike, because we've only got 6 minutes left now.
Would I recommend a career in SEO? Yes, of course I would. I think it's one of those industries that whatever happens, there are so many transferable skills. I think it's a great industry to, if you're not curious already, it'll force you to be, it'll force you to keep up to date with things. It'll force you to use tools and try and understand how they work, and it will help with your analytical skills and so on. I agree with, I think it was Simon that said about you could do something else and then fall into SEO. I think maybe online marketing in general, because it's nice to see how all the different channels work together and campaigns and so on. Great, that's my answer to the question. Okay, so we have 5 minutes left. Do we squeeze one in, or do we go straight to our usual one? Or let's go, usually we rush past it, but let's go to the regular question, which is basically, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment? And I always end with her, so I'm going to start with her. Joe, what are you most excited about at the moment when it comes to SEO?
I do always say this, that I really enjoy the events. I was lucky to go to the SMX Munich this Monday and Tuesday, and I really do enjoy learning from other people, as I mentioned, and Jordan mentioned in the chat as well. So Rand did shared a study. It was by Datos, or Datos SEMrush company, about what's happening in the SERPs right now. And I think these studies actually are quite key. Whichever person is presenting that, as long as they have a great database to present, these are key findings that we're learning from, because I like this saying, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. And these key facts that we get from other people really seem to, I would say, bring home the reality. So if we're all getting scared about AI, obviously the Datos study can confirm or align with what we're thinking, or go confirm what we're thinking, or it can also provide a different opinion. So I would say events are a really great place to connect with other people and network, and also learn from others and find out about other data that you may not have been aware of before that can affect your strategy and your plan for 2025.
Amazing. Georgia, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment?
Really excited that SEO is becoming like going towards being more holistic, being more brand focused. I think where it was always meant to go, and like really being able to focus on more about the user engagement and user experience and building a trustworthy brand, building a brand that people really care about and want to purchase and convert from is where we're being back to. I think that's really exciting. So seeing SEO come out of the silo and think more about like about design, about different like assets we can provide, like whether that's images, videos, working with different platforms like we talked about. I think there's so many possibilities, and I definitely don't think SEO is going anywhere. SEO is not going to die. It's just going to get just a lot more different branches for us to pick and choose for our clients. And that really means that companies are going to need us even more, I'd say, to really cut through that noise and pick out what is actually going to be really important for their audience. I'm leaving that on a positive note. Yeah.
I was going to say, can I just say, just as you said that then, just looking at the audience, people smiling yeah, at that point. James, what about you? What are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's that it feels like we're being faced with challenges again. I think for maybe a period of 3 or 4 years, SEO almost became easy again. We could just churn out content. There were so many sites ranking that didn't deserve to. And as someone who loves to solve a problem and face a challenge like that, I think it's exciting to see that it once again, I think, is coming back to the brands who win, the sites who win are the ones who are creating the results that deserve to rank at the top of the SERPs. And I think other than that, it's not just looking, and if I look at the deck I presented in Lithuania the other day, a big part of it was that SEO has not been telling links for a long time. And it's looking at the bigger picture for e-commerce brands. Things like the organic merchant listings are a huge opportunity. We have new things to figure out how to rank. And as someone who loves to solve a problem and reverse engineer things, I'm really excited about what's to come in that.
Amazing. Okay, I think we'll finish there. I'm, by the way, really excited about Brighton SEO. I got my ticket a few days ago. I always leave it until the last moment and decided, no, I will go. So very excited about that. So if anyone's at Brighton SEO and they fancy a coffee, a beer, some lunch, breakfast, whatever, give me a shout. And yes, going to be there from Wednesday to the Friday. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us. So thank you to our live audience. Thank you to those watching after on YouTube. Thank you so much to James and Georgia for being our special guests. You guys are amazing. Joe, thank you so much for co-hosting. Thank you to those that submitted the questions. As I said, sorry to those that we didn't answer any of the core update ones apart from that first one. I think wait till it finishes and then we'll do that. And also I should say there are some people that submit questions and we don't ask them, but it's because we've answered them before. So usually I'll shoot back a link of we've done, here's the video. But anyway, thank you so much for submitting those questions and I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Do you want to say anything, Joe?
I just want to say thank you to our wonderful special guests and everyone for joining us today. We had 24 of us. And if you're liking the videos, feel free to go onto the YouTube and subscribe and then like the video that will go live Tuesday next week. And we'll be back at 9:30 a.m. GMT on Friday. It'll be the week afterwards, BST.
Yes. And have a lovely, lovely weekend. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.